What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel for another 1/6 scale figure review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the InArt Collectibles Paul Atreides Deluxe version with the rooted hair head sculpt, and I'm really excited to take a look at this with you guys today. I've had some of the AUG Toys figures in my collection forever, and I've been waiting for my Paul Atreides, so this figure is very exciting for me. The packaging, of course, as always for InArt, is really beautifully done. I think this might be my favorite art box yet, and this is actually the smallest art box out of all of the InArt figures I own. It actually is pretty close to a normal 1/6 scale figure box. But really quickly, because it is an InArt figure, I do want to show you what it looks like under this sleeve, because I think it's very special. This art box very much has a storytelling aspect to it, with the sand dunes of Arrakis in the background, and there's Paul himself at the bottom. And on the back, you have Paul Atreides' eyes right there, and it's kind of a shifting image. And as you move towards the bottom, there's a really cool quote: "Dreams are messages from the deep." And I know I said this art box was on the smaller side, but you can see even in the front here, it's just absolutely packed to the brim with accessories. As I always say, I love that everything is individually plastic wrapped. It's a bit of a chore, but it's well worth it in the end. But now, without further ado, let's take all of the accessories and the figure out of the art box and take a closer look at all of the details. We're just going to get right into it and get right down to business right off the bat and take a look at the head sculpt. I've seen some people who have this in hand already saying this is one of the best head sculpts they've ever seen, so I really want to judge it for myself. Just seeing it peering through the container there, it looks absolutely amazing. As I mentioned in my Ron Weasley review, this is a new sculpt container design for InArt, and I much prefer this one over the traditional, like, cylindrical one. But without further ado, let's crack this plastic top off. I loosened it off camera so I didn't have any catastrophes behind the camera, like scraping the nose or anything. But guys, holy shit. This truly is one of the most accurate, best head sculpts I've personally ever seen. That is Timothée Chalamet through and through. The hair looks excellent. I'm really on a roll with my copies from InArt. All of my hairs have been looking really good. I don't know if that was proper English, but I don't care. It looks really good, guys. I'm really impressed. They've done a great job at matching Timothée Chalamet's skin tone and hair color. It looks so lifelike. It's almost weird to have it in hand. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so we can see a bit more of the details on the face paint. And yeah, even just seeing this behind the camera, I'll get even closer. You could see all the little freckles and moles on his face. The red spotting here and there under the skin to make it look more layered and realistic. This is fantastic. The hair is fantastic. The paintwork is fantastic. And even as you rotate it and get to that side profile, it's nearly perfect. Like I said, they've just done such a great job with this head sculpt, and I'm very pleased. When you go to affix the head sculpt to the body, you just have to turn it and then pull up and it comes right off. It almost looks even more weird when you have it in your hands because it looks like you're holding a real human head. And here is our alternate masked up portrait. And as you can see, this looks really nice as well. The paint apps are great. The weathering there on the mouthpiece. This is very nice. Even though you could just see the eyes there, you could see the likeness in it. I think this actually pulls apart to access the eyeballs. Yes, it does. That looks a little creepy when you have it pulled off of there, but it just magnetizes back on the sculpt. And again, this looks very good. The paint apps are great. The way everything's laid out is great. The sculpt is really nice. I'm pretty happy with this. I would never use this over the actual rooted hair head sculpt, but it's pretty cool that it includes it. Well, as you can see, there's certainly no shortage of gloved hands with this set. There are a ton of different swap out gloved hands. Only two kind of open, relaxed flesh tone hands, though this is the still suit, so that does make sense. The detail on these fabric gloves is very impressive. You could see all the different patterns and everything sculpted in, the stitches, all of the weathering and everything looks really nice. You can see the weathering applied to the folds on the inside of the glove. This just looks very realistic. And even though you only get two of them, you can see the flesh tone hands are insanely well painted. You have airbrushed in veins. The ring is really nicely painted, and as we tilt it up, you can see you actually have painted in cuticles. The Frem kit accessory looks extremely realistic and really nicely done. As you can see, there's some nice sculpting and texture work there. The weathering is beautiful. As I rotate it, you can see you have some fabric elements here on the back, some nice padding there. There is a real fabric strap with a buckle to strap it onto Paul. It's just really really nicely done, and it's functional because you can open it up. So you can see you can open this side and then open this side as well. You're greeted with all of your accessories on the inside of the backpack. You can see you have your little sand compactor there. This might be that telescope accessory. You can take these out. You just have to pull up these flaps. There's these little pegs on the inside. I will pull out the sand compactor just to look at it. Once you get this little sand compactor removed from the Frem kit, you can see how beautifully done it is. All the sculpted in detail. The paint work, you can see as we get closer, the weathering, like the dry brushing and the sand texture. We can look on the inside there. This definitely looks like it could be a lightsaber. Like you could definitely see it be... It also includes 2 of those little worm hooks. You can see you can have it fully collapsed or you can have it opened up with the hooks out. Be very careful with these. They feel very brittle. Make sure you read the instructions when you're opening up the hooks, because if you go in the wrong direction, it's definitely going to break. Speaking of worms, you do have a thumper accessory, and this is really nicely done. You can see the paintwork on there is very realistic. But what's really cool about this is InArt was clever enough to add that actual thumper functionality. And as you know from the films, that was very terrifying because you knew it was coming once those started going off. Of course, you get Paul's iconic Chris knife and a sheath for it. If you get close up on that handle there, there's some really nice sculpted in engravings there. Same with the actual sheath itself. Of course, it does remove from the sheath. This is really nicely sculpted and painted. It looks very close to the film. I will say a word of warning, be careful. That tip is extremely thin on the knife. It is taped up with a piece of plastic in the packaging, so be very careful when removing that because it will break very easily. The engineering on this Mala pistol is really dope. You actually have a spring-loaded function that moves really nicely and smoothly, and you have a joint here so you can fully extend the handle on the pistol. It's a really tight joint. It looks great. Fantastic accessory. If you purchase it directly from InArt, there is an exclusive accessory. Of course, it's that cute little mouse from the sand dunes. This is really cool. I really had to have it. I love accessories like this. Anything extra is just really cool to me, but yeah, he's really nicely sculpted and painted. You also get this little breathing mask to go over the head sculpt, the shield accessory that goes on the wrist, and an opened up paracompass. We also have our cloak accessory. This is really nicely done. Of course, it has wiring running all throughout the seams. The weathering is really beautiful. The tattered fabric at the bottom. It just looks really realistic, and this is something I will definitely be using on my figure. And last but certainly not least, you have your display base. This looks really good. If you get close up, it's kind of like glittery in nature. This is obviously based on the infrastructure from the buildings that the Atreides clan was staying on in Arrakis when they got attacked. This looks really nicely done. I love that nameplate there. Of course, when you flip it upside down, it has that same shifting magnet system. You just follow the arrows and rotate that plate and access the magnets on the inside. But yeah, this is very simple, but very elegant. Great choice. Well, thank you for being so patient. We can finally take a look at the figure. As you can see, once you open up the package, there's an official InArt sticker here holding down the nose tube. Once you actually get that sticker removed, you can see the nose tube just moves freely now. Be very careful with this tube. I've had some people already tell me that theirs broke on them, so I'm going to be very careful with mine in this video. If I can't get it sitting right on the nose, I'm just going to leave it at that because I do not want mine to break. But let's take a look at some additional details here on this outfit. I did go ahead and install the masked head sculpt onto the body, just so we're not looking at a headless Paul Atreides while we look at the suit here. But looking at the proportions, guys, I'll be honest with you, they look pretty damn good. Timothée Chalamet is a tall, slender guy, and I think InArt has chosen a great body here for this figure. I think it looks really, really good. In terms of installing that masked head or the rooted hair head as well, it is kind of a pain in the ass. You just have to be patient with it. You have the hood pulled back, of course, off of the head, and you have to separate that fabric away from the hole for the head sculpt and just do your best to line it up and kind of be careful and shimmy it in. It's not fun. You have to be patient. But if you are patient, you will be rewarded. I did get it in pretty easily. It didn't take me like an hour or anything. It took me about 15 minutes, but you could definitely see Timothée Chalamet in those eyes on that masked head sculpt. I think that looks pretty dang good. The actual suit itself is gorgeous. It's very beautifully recreated in 1/6 scale form. You can see all of the details and weathering. You really miss it if you don't pay close attention to it. You can see it's all over the body, all the rips. the rubs in the fabric. One thing I do want to point out though while we're close is the suit material is actually pretty tight. So as you see when I'm pulling that arm up, it really pulls on the suit material. So I know a lot of people, they're going to want to do that may thy knife chip and shatter pose, and I feel like that's really going to hurt the material over time. Also here in the inner armpit area, this is like a rubber gasket type material, kind of like IG-11, and I do worry as you bend that arm, you can see it does crunch it right there. It is a double jointed arm, but I'm definitely worried about that. So I would say maybe if you're worried about your figures getting hurt from poses, be on the safer side with this one. I do think he'll look pretty cool regardless of how you pose him. Moving down though on the suit, again, beautiful detail. You can see my cod piece is kind of shifted over. It does seem like you can shift it back with your finger, but it does kind of fall back into place there. So I'll have to mess with that off camera. But again, everything is looking really good. The weathering is just second to none. It's beautiful. Pre-installed on the figure, you have some open, relaxed, gloved hands, as you can see. Again, the weathering and texture on everything is really good. Moving down, the same beautiful weathering and texturing on the knee pads and all the different little outer plastic pieces on the still suit and everything. Moving down to the shoes, they're very nicely sculpted as well. And of course, they have plenty of weathering on them. Of course, we have some really nice tread on there as well. Also, those are weathered, so really nice attention to detail. The still suit is definitely my favorite look for Paul, and again, InArt has done such a great job at recreating it here in 1/6 scale form. Even on the back, like I said, just so many little details, so much weathering. It just looks really fantastic, so I'm very, very impressed. Like I said, the one thing, the suit is very stiff. I would be careful posing it. It's not too bad in the knees, but the arm area definitely worries me. Let me throw the cloak on him really quick because I want to see how that fits and how easy it is to put on the body. And here's the figure with the cloak on it, and I truly feel like that kind of completes the look. This cloak does require a lot of micro adjustments, so just bear that in mind when you're putting it on. Be patient. It's going to take some working at it to get it looking properly. I still don't have mine looking 100% how I want it, but I just wanted to throw it on for the purpose of the video so you could see how everything lays on the body and everything. Like I mentioned earlier, there is wiring in the hood and all the way down the seam here, which is really nice because it helps you adjust everything and put it in different poses. You can see when I turn it around the back, I don't know if this is how it's properly laid on, but I just kind of draped it over the back after I wrapped it around his neck. There's two pieces. One goes one way, one goes the other way. And when you look at film stills, it looks different in many different stills. So it doesn't have to be 100% perfect because it looks different in multiple shots in the film. But before we wrap up this video, let's throw the head sculpt on the body real quick and see how that looks. So before we move on to the final posing segment of the video, I wanted to show you the head sculpt with some closer up angles on the actual body. Of course, it looks fantastic. I think you have to run it with this rooted hair head sculpt especially. It just looks really good, and I can't say this enough. This head sculpt is nearly perfect, so I'm very pleased. I decided in this video I'm not going to mess with the nose plug. When you're doing reviews and you're trying to get stuff done, it's very easy to try to rush through things, so I'm going to take my own time with that breathing plug and try to figure it out on my own without breaking it. But of course, with your personal copy, you could do whatever you'd like with it. Just with mine, I want to take my time with it. So with that being said, let's throw this figure in a couple poses. I'll share my final thoughts, and then we'll close out this video. So here I've got Paul in like a neutral pose with the cloak and the full hood up and the mask and everything. I think he looks awesome. Like I said, because of the materials on this suit, some of you guys may want to go for a pose like this if you're worried about it being damaged over time. Again, that cloak does require a lot of futzing. I still don't have it exactly perfect how I want it in the video, but I do think he looks pretty dang decent here. This isn't the look I'm gonna go for in my display in particular because like I said earlier, I do want to use that head sculpt, but this does look very good. This figure really is just so wild to me though because it just looks so real. The realism is crazy on this piece, the weathering, the head sculpts. It's just amazing, and I'm just kind of blown away as I'm just staring at it here with this close-up shot of the sculpt. I gotta tell you, once you put that head sculpt on the body, it just really brings that figure to life and completes the whole complete look. Also, I will say, I think it was pretty smart on my end to put that mask sculpt on first. It definitely opened up that neck hole a little bit because it is slightly bigger in diameter than the actual head sculpt. It made it much easier. I literally put on this head sculpt after taking off the mask sculpt in like 10 seconds. So it took me about 15 minutes for the mask sculpt and 10 seconds to put the head sculpt on. So I would definitely recommend that if you're going to be playing around with it, posing it. Put the mask sculpt on first. Just open up that hole in the neck a little bit and it'll make it easier for you. Another thing I want to note, the hand pegs are way better on this figure than they were on the Superman, for example. They pop on and off really easily. It's like the perfect amount of tension, in my opinion, for those hand pegs. So bravo to InArt on that. They definitely listened about that Superman, because those Superman hand pegs were miserable. There was absolutely no heat needed for me. I just took them on and off like any other 1/6 scale figure. And this head sculpt is just phenomenal. Like I said earlier, I've yet to find any lighting where it looks bad. I just think InArt really knocked it out of the park with the likeness. The hair looks incredible. I think my copy looks very good, so I'm very pleased with that. I'm just over the moon about this figure, if you can't tell. You know, I just had this feeling that these three were going to look great together. On the right, we have Duke Leto Atreides from AUG Toys, and on the left, we have Gurney from AUG Toys, and they look fantastic. Rest in peace, Leto Atreides, but you know, our boy Gurney showed back up in the second film and did Paul justice, so what a great looking trio here. Again, I'm glad that I passed on the AUG Toys Paul Atreides figures. I actually had the suited one for a very short amount of time. I wasn't a huge fan of the head sculpt on that one, and I just got to say, InArt has absolutely delivered. This figure looks fantastic. It looks lifelike. Even next to these AUG Toys figures, which I thought were pretty decent, you could see InArt just clears. They did such a fantastic job with the realism, the weathering, the accessories. Everything is just amazing. So, guys, that's going to wrap up this video. As always, I appreciate you for watching. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comments down below. Do you think this is one of the best InArt figures of all time, or one of the best 6 scale figures of all time? I remember a lot of people were saying that about the InArt Joker, but I feel much more that this is one of my favorite 1/6 scale figures of all time. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. See ya.